And we're going to get the crystal ball out now and have a look into the future. And we do that thanks to a chap who is just, I think this is an amazing job. He is a futurologist, social commentator as well, Mal Fletcher. Very good morning to you, Mal.
Good morning, Phil. You mentioned vaccine development. We will see this year, I think, new vaccines that can be delivered via skin patches. At least one company is working on a vaccine right now that could potentially treat any COVID variant. And others are looking at adding the flu vaccine to COVID jabs so that people need fewer injections. That'd be good. But I think we'll also see developments in vaccines like HIV, for HIV and malaria. That's already been in process for a while, but COVID has sped it up. And let's not forget too, we need to do a lot more this year, and we will do more to get vaccines to the 98% of people in low-income countries who've not even received one dose of a vaccine. And I still think we need to hold big pharma companies to account, even though they're doing such good work, and they are, and I have friends working in that industry. We need to hold them to account for their ethics going forward, because as some have pointed out, I agree that sometimes in COVID-19, in the pandemic, we've responded to science as if it were infallible until fairly recently. But good science always challenges its own assumptions. And so we need to remember that science and scientific companies are made up of human beings who, like the rest of us in the right circumstances, get stressed, may be driven by ambition at times. We should celebrate the benefits of science this year, but we should really keep an eye on the ethics we apply to medical texts, and that includes the way they're sent to the developed world.
Yeah. It does feel like science is under vast pressure, isn't it, from a fairly... Well, there's a sceptical bunch out there that may are finding it difficult to hear the messages that maybe science is delivering.
Yeah, that's true. And that was something that was predictable at the end of last year, that there would be a growing cohort of people who either believe in conspiracy theories or at least are very wary of science. It's always, I think, fairly logical that if you put your faith in a group of human beings, whether it's politicians or scientists or someone else, eventually there's got to be something about that group collectively that you're calling into question. I do think this year, though, and science will help with this, there'll be big advances on mental health services. That's good news. But the pandemic has led to a huge increase, as you know, in people suffering with anxiety, depression, stress. I think it's nearly 800 million people, Phil, worldwide, who now live with a mental health condition. So we'll see a huge increase this year in the number of mental health apps on their phones, for example. Some of them already, studies have shown, are doing great work in decreasing depression. So we'll see apps that are tailor-made for children and young people when it comes to mental health, teaching cognitive behavioural therapy skills, for example. And I think this year, and we can watch for this, we might expect governments to come under pressure when it comes to elderly care homes to purchase things like what's called a care bot, which is essentially a smart machine that, quote, reads human emotion and responds in kind. Of course, that'll never replace the human touch. Machines can't empathize, only human beings can do that. But there are studies that suggest that these devices overseas have helped cut down on loneliness among older people. So science still has a lot to offer.
The interesting thing, I think, with the pandemic, one of the many, is how it has changed so fast. Things like the way we are educating our children and the way we are shopping and things like that as well. It's been quite fascinating. Can we continue to see changes like that coming?
Yeah, education will move in many ways. I think this year we're going to see greater emphasis on lifelong learning coming to the fore, so that training and retraining become a steady part of our training and working lives. So schools will start to teach, I think, even young children, things like anxiety management, problem solving, and in time transition skills because of the rate of automation that's coming on the back of COVID. So because so many people will be looking not just for another job many times in their lives, but a different livelihood several times in their lives. And I think with education, there's going to be a big swing towards alternatives to the traditional university experience. Students balk at the idea of going into huge debt when they're receiving most of their lectures online. And so people like Sir James Dyson have the right idea, starting his Dyson Institute of Engineering Tech, which trains and pays engineering students on the job. Great opportunity for young professionals to graduate debt-free. And schools like that, I think, this year will start to have more applicants than they can handle.
Now, one thing that popped up over the last year, and I know it's been going around a little bit before that, but I think thanks to Facebook suddenly becoming Meta, this idea of the Metaverse, is that still a tangible thing? I don't understand it yet. I'm assuming I'm going to have to grasp it at some point. Is it? Yeah. Does that come up on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing some interviews recently about it. The idea is not a new one. It's been around for quite a long time, though Facebook would love to claim credit for it. It basically means a unifying application of the internet, drawing together all things digital, say from AI to cybercurrency, games, augmented reality, and everything else. And the starting point might be what I've called sociable media, the next iteration of social media, where you and I can put on a VR device. And it's starting to happen with Meta now, with Facebook now. People can sit in a room, chatting to each other's avatars, feeling like they're actually there. And on the plus side, that could give us a far greater capacity for mass collaboration on the internet, people working together online to solve problems. But neuroscientists have warned for a while now that a heavy engagement with digital may be rewiring our brains so that instead of using reason and logic, we become hyper emotional in the way we communicate. And that's already happening, we know, with social media. Yeah. So that could be supercharged with this metaverse concept. So there's pros and cons with it all.
Yeah, really fascinating. Just so for 2022, have you got a single thing that's going to dominate? Is it the pandemic still? Is that still going to keep doing what it's been doing for the last 2 years now?
Yeah, I think that COVID will have a long tail. Its biggest impact, I think, has already come, and we're living on the back of that now with Omicron. But I think one of the other things that's going to hang around and was here before the pandemic but sped up as a result of it is the whole issue of cash and cashlessness. And we were just not debating the downsides of a fully cashless society. Things like digital debt, identity fraud, data outages.
Yeah.
And what comes next? We've moved from cash to credit cards to debit to cashless systems on our phones. What's next? Some technologists think it is payment systems built into the human body.
Wow.
I have concerns with that. So I think that'll come to the fore a little more this year.
Yeah, it is interesting. I can't remember the last time I actually had to use cash. So it's, when it gets to that stage where you can pop down to the local market stalls and not need to use cash, things are changing on. That's really fascinating. Mal, thank you very much. And we'll probably catch up with you in a year. Mal Fletcher there, futurologist. And interesting to see. He's got good track record with these things, so you can guarantee that's going to happen.